Now let's look at this. I just said that Jerusalem is not there. I just said that we don't see any southern or Judean cities in the highlands mentioned on the evidence that we have. What about the north? Do you see some key places not mentioned? At least 2 key places not mentioned here on the north.
Shechem and the other place.
Shechem, Samaria, which is the capitals. Samaria is not mentioned. Shechem is not mentioned. That is problematic to me because Samaria was the most densely settled and economically rich area in Iron Age 1. So to not mention Samaria is concerning. Shechem, as we know, the most important city in that area, is not mentioned as well. And then principal places like Dothan is also not mentioned. This begs the question. These key places are not mentioned. So what could have been the reason for this campaign? Number 1 question. Number 2 question that is problematic to me is that the highlands, let me bring the map, the highlands to the north of Jerusalem, which is Gibeon, and the area of the Jabbok River. When I talk about the Jabbok River, on the first map, you want to look at where Sukkot, Mahanaim, Penuel is. So if you identify that, you can follow what I'm saying. So my first issue is that these important places are not mentioned. So what could have been the reason for the campaign? My number 2 concern that I would need answers to is that the highlands to the north of Jerusalem, which is Gibeon, and then the area of the Jabbok River, where you have Penuel, Sukkot, Mahanaim, are so far from the main international highways. I mean, they're off. They are inland. And these places have never been a focus of the Egyptian pharaohs. For example, in the time of the New Kingdom, Egyptian pharaohs refrained from penetrating into the sparsely settled, wooded, rugged, and hostile hill country. They refrained from going there. So the march of Sheshonq I, his campaign against this area, is an exception to the rule. Why do it when your predecessors avoided it? What is Sheshonq I doing in the heart of the highlands? That is a concern. Now we fast forward. We know that twice in later history, when we look at the during the Maccabean era and then the first Jewish revolts, large enemies of strong empires were destroyed when they attempted to enter the heart of the highlands. So why is Sheshonq doing something that militarily his predecessors avoided, and then ahead of him or later, empires got whipped trying to enter that place? What was his motivation? Because Gibeon, north of Jerusalem, the Jabbok area, is way inland. It's far away from the international highway. So why go that far? I guess there's only one reasonable answer to that. Who can guess?
Is it to try to control the cities around Shechem? Because they are allies?
Cities around Shechem. Yes, you have a point. Yes, you do. Yes. It's a correct statement. If we can expound on it some more. Sheshonq is taking a risk. He's doing something that his predecessors did not do. He's doing something that those that came after him did and they were wiped out. No. Getting into the heart of the highland. What is he doing there? Why go so far to Gibeon? Why go so far to the Jabbok River, where you have Sukkot, Mahanaim, Penuel? Well, the reasonable answer is that the area around Gibeon, together with the Jabbok region, was the hub of an emerging territorial political entity that endangered Egyptian interests in Canaan. So what Labayu did in the Shechem the campaign of Shechem, let me put it that way, is happening again, and Sheshonq the First wants to put an end to it, or a stop to it, or challenge it. Remember Labayu? He attempted to expand diplomatically and militarily from the highlands of Shechem in all directions. There is an entity that is emerging doing the same, and the hub, it's around Gibeon and Bethel. Who do you think it was? When you hear Gibeon, whose name comes into your head?
Saul.
Yes. You have Saul historically placed here. And what is Saul doing? He's doing the same thing that Labayu did. Labayu attempted to expand diplomatically and militarily from the highlands of Shechem in all directions. And Saul, or the Saulides, are doing that. So their campaign was directed against a 10th century BCE territorial entity that's centered in the Gibeon and Bethel plateau. Right here. And we will notice that, well, next week we'll go more into details. We'll notice that we have the evidence here that after Sheshonq's campaign, they were not wiped out, but there was a decline of this Bethel Gibeon entity, and then some sites in this region were abandoned. We have the evidence to prove the archaeological. What did First Kings do? Who can tell us what they did? Knowing what we know now, what is their crime? The Deuteronomistic writer, 1 Kings 14:25 to 26, or 25:26. What did they do wrong here?
Excuse me, Rabbi. Did they ascribe something to Rehoboam and Sheshonq, and should have been to Saul?
Correct. In doing that, they've changed the dates, they've changed the king, they've taken a historical account, maybe an oral one, and then they've put southern kings in there. And then now it's a match against Jerusalem. No, it's not a match against Jerusalem. It's a match against this territorial entity that is forming. And Sheshonq the First is taking the risk of coming all the way inland. I mean, it's a stretch to put an end to that. And we see a decline in that area. The Bethel Gibeon area, we see a decline of this entity that he campaigned against, and then the abandonment of sites in this region. So, from knowing the historical account, going outside of the biblical text, we can now correct these claims by the Deuteronomistic historian. So one will ask, are there any archaeological evidence that there were some forts, some fortified palaces or castles? Oh, yes. And I'll provide that next week. This is just an icebreaker to put Saul historically on the scene. The Saulides. How do we know they were on the scene? Because of the campaign of Sheshonq the First.